cost so much, we'll have to do this, that, and the other, build a parliament. Oh no, we've done that. But let's just have a look at the cost of independence, or as I like to refer to it, the savings, the humongous savings of independence. Let's start off with the question. Does anyone know how much a fur coat costs? Well, basically, the House of Lords, which I believe has more members now than the Scottish Parliament and the House of Commons put together, but not one single nationalist, even though we have a majority government of nationalists in this country. If we add what we pay as Scotland, our contribution to Westminster and the House of Lords every year, together it comes to 60 million. So that's £60 million a year we'd save just by not paying for their massive expensive accountants and their ability to flip their houses, as Alison Bellin did 3-4 times, I'm not quite sure. Oops, I'm not allowed to do that, sorry. So how about sharing embassies? We don't need to build all these embassies all over the world. Let's share embassies. No, they say you can't share embassies. They're our embassies. Wait a second, we own a population percentage share of them, and you've got 42 buildings in Washington DC alone. Maybe we could have 2 or 3 of them. No, they're ours. You can't. You'll have the expense of building your own embassies all over the world. We don't share embassies with anyone. Except the 240 embassies who share the same cost with Canada. And we're doing an agreement with Ireland right now. Don't they know these countries have already become independent from Great Britain? Who would like to say, hands up, who would like to save 1.5 billion a year and not have nuclear weapons in this country? Okay, quite a few. The majority of the people in Scotland. Now I have a friend who is a retired nuclear submarine commander. He was weapons ops on nuclear submarines for 21 years and got 2 years of commanding a sub before actually retiring. And I said to him, "You must want nuclear weapons." And he said, "No, we've got to get rid of them." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "We used to joke that if we ever get attacked by anyone, we'd have to go nuclear about hour 2. He says, because we've run out of conventional weapons, by then I guess anyone even half decent. He said, we used to joke we'd have to send the guys home to get the Molotov to beat them over the head with, because we don't have conventional. And he says, it's about projecting power around the world. And an independent Scotland doesn't want to project power around the world, it wants to project peace and understanding around the world, and that's a better goal to do. Fergus Dalton, an Irish Republican nuclear submarine commander who is now a councillor for the SND in Glasgow. We didn't check his background to give him the key to press it on. How about HS2, one of my big bugbears? This is a very fast train that will go from London to Manchester and Leeds. It will stop hundreds of miles away from Scotland, but we are going to have to stump up 10% of the cost of it from our taxes. It started off at 25 billion. It was approved by a chancellor called Alistair Darling. It then ballooned to the recently, this was just 2 weeks ago, they announced it was going to be 48 billion, but there's now been an estimate of 80 billion. So we, in Scotland, our share of that could be £8,000 million. That's 4 years of our entire budget to build hospitals, to repair roads, to build murals, to build bridges, to build new schools. We've got to give up all of that so that we can have a fast train that will actually intensify the overheating of London and the South East. And actually, they're going to cancel our intercity trains from Aberdeen and Perth to London because they can't run the same line system. You have to change twice to get to London. So HS2 is a quite relevant project. Now, Government Expenditure and Revenue Report Scotland shows that in Scotland, in terms of the amount of taxes we raise versus the rest of the UK, or in terms of average per head, we are £824 per person in this country a year better off. In terms of our deficit that we run a deficit of 5%, versus the UK runs a deficit of 7.9%. That is a huge amount of money, ladies and gentlemen. But of our deficit of 7 billion last year, 4.1 billion was interest on UK debt. It was taken out of our budget. So we didn't spend it, it was interest on UK debt. And over the last 30 years, not only have we raised more taxes per head every single year than the rest of the UK, we would have been in surplus as an independent nation. We wouldn't have had any debt. We were paying 4,100 million last year. We have not paid the debt back. We don't have enough money to pay the debt back. It's actually getting larger and larger and larger. What we're doing is we're paying the interest on that debt, so they don't foreclose on us. Yeah, and yet we would never have been in debt as an independent nation. So in Scotland, we get 9.3% of UK public spending, but we've generated 9.9% of tax revenue. And the thing that I thought was really fascinating was, I saw Joanne the one, I'm not going to do like Dennis did a great impression of her before, so I'm not going to try and do an impression. But she said, but the 9.3, because we're in deficit, is more than the 9.9 raised, because you actually spend more. That's great. So she said, you're better off because you're part of the union. Well, actually, what that means is that we've borrowed, because we're in deficit, we've borrowed that money, or the UK government has borrowed that money on our behalf. And guess what? We only get to spend 9.3 of that, but we have to pay 9.9 back, plus the 2% interest that the loans actually secured that. So we're better off because somebody else borrows more money, doesn't allow us to spend as much of it, never makes us pay back more. It's a ludicrous and economically incompetent suggestion. When we're in surplus, 9.9 is more than 9.3, and when we're in deficit, 9.9 of the debt is more than 9.3. Okay, so it's always more. And that's been the case every single year for 30 years that we've raised more. And people say, but what about the debt, UK debt? You'll be drowning in it. It's already in our accounts. So is all the nuclear weapons spend. So is all the war in Iraq that our Parliament voted against. It's already in there. And that's what our deficit is made up of. Stuff we voted against, not what we spent in Scotland. Okay? So what happens with all that wealth being sucked out of Scotland? What actually happens to our economy? And this is where I'm very interested in. Well, you can actually see that over a very long period there, and this is I'm hoping to get new more up-to-date stats, because since, and I'm not being party political in any way whatsoever, but since the Scottish National Party took over, our economy has started growing faster compared to the rest of the UK, which is very interesting. So basically, we'll look at the speed of growth of economies that are small countries in Europe, etc. We can actually see, and also versus the UK, we can actually see that Scotland's economy, as a result of the sucking all wealth and power down to the southeast and the lack of investment, because we've been paying more tax than we're getting back, our economy has not been growing that fast. Over the last 30 years, if our economy had grown at the same rate as the average for the whole of the UK, our economy would be 25% larger than it is today. 25% more tax to spend, 25% more jobs. Yeah? We probably have about a 30% larger population. Yeah? 25% more global companies, probably a lot more than that. If it had grown at the same rate as Norway, it would be 33% bigger economy than we currently have. So basically the union has cost us 33% of our entire economy over 30 years. That's the union dividend, ladies and gentlemen. And those figures again are in Eurostat, so the EU calculate figures. So we're set for decades of austerity as a result of following the economic model that London in the southeast has followed, and it's now lost its AAA status. If you add personal debt and government debt together, the UK's debt is about 940% of GDP, 940% of the entire turnover of the country. No country in the world has ever recovered from more than 400%. Ever. Japan, Argentina, now Greece, etc. We are up there with them. The only thing stopping us from collapsing is the balance of payments contribution from Scotland and also interest rates being low. Either those two things change, we'll have another crash. So if we pull out of the UK sterling zone and launch our own currency, we could create another crash. That doesn't do us any good because we're our biggest trading partners. But we can send shockwaves through the entire economic system by declaring independence and running our country much better and showing them the way it should be done, and allowing and forcing them to bring a federal system in for the rest of the UK so that my hometown in Hexham and Consett, Durham, Middlesbrough, etc. can be better run as well. So deindustrialisation has created large areas of poverty and deprivation in Scotland, but all that has happened. 129 Londoners have become dollar millionaires, and I think that really shows it. We were told that deindustrialisation would get rid of all the manufacturing and bring in services, etc. But Germany thought different. Germany thought there was an alternative to that, and they invested in small to medium-sized family firms and productivity. How did that work out anymore? Yeah, much better. Very good, yeah. The Mittelstand, I believe it's called. So I mentioned we started the year with bad debt, and I'm just going to show you this again, not because I like this, of course, but because I want to remind you that 60 million saving is the gift that keeps on giving us every year, ongoing, again and again and again. So, in conclusion, we can't afford not to become an independent country. Then the Scottish banks. Let's deal quickly with the Scottish banks issue. Does anyone remember when Andy Murray used